that had materialized into the forest around them. Dark spaces between the trees suggested shadowy forms that lurked beyond the light of the candles. In the foreground of the picture were strange creatures the size of small monkeys and covered with piebald fur. One had left the picture and was scampering around in its pool of light on the gallery floor. The man knelt and picked it up. Then the smell was suddenly stronger. Behind him he heard a sound, and without looking he knew what it was. The nightmare form of a monstrous creature slowly emerged from the darkness beyond the gallery. It stood erect on immensely muscular hind limbs, its enormous jaws filled with needle-sharp teeth as long and transparent as icicles. It had huge, pale eyes as big as tea trays. From between them extended a long, curved barbel with a luminous tip like that of a deep-sea fish. For a long moment they stood staring at each other. Then the monster folded its long wings and charged. As it hurtled towards the man, it uttered a blood-curdling roar. The green man thrust the small, piebald creature into his rags, turned and sprinted down the gallery, his feet splashing in the watercourse. He knew from his pursuer's composition and fine detail that it was the work of Lucas Flink, and therefore exceedingly dangerous. But this was not the moment for the finer points of art appreciation. Ahead, an interruption in the light betrayed the presence of a painting with its surface still intact. There was no time to examine the dark canvas closely. He had to trust that the seal remained unbroken. He came to a halt and made a complicated gesture with his hand, and, with a faint smile of satisfaction, he saw the surface ripple. Then he vanished. Flink's creature let out a howl of frustration and skidded to a halt in front of the canvas, its wicked jaws closing on thin air and its claws tearing great gashes in the floor. It sneezed loudly, spraying pellets of foul black mucus onto the canvas, each droplet reflecting a tiny distorted image of its maker as it slid slowly down. The ghostly light from the creature's barbel revealed a snowy landscape with a group of lamplit dwellings nestling in a hollow. Misty blue mountains graced the skyline, silhouetted against the setting sun. If the creature had possessed the intelligence to comprehend the picture, it would have seen a trail of footprints leading from the foreground down towards the village. And if it had followed that trail to its end, it would have seen the beautifully painted form of a ragged man with a skin of malachite green cradling a tiny, piebald creature in his arms. He was looking back over his shoulder and smiling. Chapter 1. The Messenger. The hare lay perfectly still. As a breeze stirred the long grass, her silky fur would ruffle and her whiskers twitch. Once, when a bee lifted off from a nearby gentian flower, she gave a quick flick of her long ear to send it on its way. Mel could see the nervous movement of her tiny nose as she sniffed the air for danger. Her bright eyes remained motionless, but she was aware of everything around her. There was no sound except the faint buzz of insects and the whispering of the trees. Mel had skived off to his favourite spot on the outskirts of the village. He had been dying to try out his new drawing materials. Lately, he had been experimenting with a new ink. His first attempts had been soot mixed with water, but the ink was thin and soon faded to a sickly yellow-brown when he drew with it. His brainwave was to boil the sooty liquid the same way his mother thickened the broth. The result was much more like the real ink that Far Theum used to pen his sermons. For his pen, Mel had a fine goose quill made from a long wing feather. With his father's sharp knife, he had stripped away all of the feathery part and cut a fine point that he split to hold the ink. It was light, feather-light, in fact, and responded to the slightest movement of his hand. Mel sat in the sweet-smelling grass with the warm midday sun on his back, resting his